Hi, my name is Lynette Rice. I cover television for Entertainment Weekly, and I'm here to talk with Hilarie Burton. Hilarie, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is a
So you're
nice departure from like mucking the stalls.
so you are a full-on farmer now.
Yeah, we're farmers. We live on a 100-acre farm. It's like 2 hours north of Manhattan. We've got cows, alpaca, chickens, ducks, donkeys. We have an emu. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's busy.
Do you have roosters that you throw clocks at in the morning?
We've got a rooster who is pretty aggressive. So it's good because he keeps hawks and things away. But we just got a whole new batch of baby chicks, and one is starting to present as another rooster. So there's going to be an alpha male fight in the barnyard. It's better than TV. It's
Oh,
like real life.
totally. It sounds really idyllic now, especially when the rest of us are stuck in a house. I mean, you actually have someplace good to walk.
It's a good place to walk. And the mindset that my husband and I have kind of undertaken is that if we're in a good mental space and we're used to lockdown, we don't see people when we're at home, then our job is to be as helpful as possible to everybody else who's having a rough time right now. So I've been sewing masks, and we've been raising money for PPE and buying PPE ourselves and getting restaurants to deliver food to our front line. So it's been busy, and it's busy running a farm in the spring. But yeah, if you're doing okay, then it's your job to make sure people who aren't are taken care of.
Oh, that's nice. All right, so we're going to talk about your book, The Rural Diaries, Love, Livestock, and Big Life Lessons Down on Mischief Farm. I first off, I want to address the cover. Is that your actual farmhouse in the hydrangea? Are those your
No.
hydrangeas?
Well, listen, I've got huge fat hydrangea all around my house. No, when we were doing the artwork for the book, we weren't really agreeing on, what the vibe should be. And thank God I'm with Harper One, because they were just so wonderful to work with. Anything I wanted, they were just like, yes. So they went to the website that I had built with my web developer for over a year, and they saw the artwork we developed there for our website for Mischief Farm. And they're like, let's just use this. We like this. We live in big sky country. The sky here is a really ever-changing screen to watch. And so that was something that we wanted to visualize. And thankfully it all came together. So no, it's not my actual farmhouse. It's my web design art. But it was important to me that we use that folk art method of mixing media. I like photography mixed with illustration, mixed with painting. The more hodgepodge it is, the more entertaining it is for me.
So what drove you to write this book?
Yeah, I'd been talking to joining social media. I was very, very late to the social media game. And I was talking to joining it for work reasons. And what I was noticing over and over again is that this idea of what is success was really skewed from what I knew in my own personal life. And so I was seeing everybody with their perfect hair and their perfect teeth and their, like, this is my $10,000 Met gown. And, it was very showy and it was very unattainable. And I don't live in that world. I live in a very blue collar agricultural farming community. And so as I set out to write the book, I really wanted to honor the quiet, noble lives that I live around, and these heroes in my world who are, my doctors, the school teachers, the farmer that taught us everything we know. That's what I wanted to shine a spotlight on, because I love them. And I think that their lives are every bit as interesting and valuable as the ones that get like a lot of clicks on the Instagram.
I don't want to get too eat, pray, lovey here, but is there a part of you that also found yourself as well on the farm?
Oh my God, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I went from being a 26-year-old kid that had been on a teen drama forever, and I left that very discontent, which was frustrating. I've been doing theater since I was 8 years old. I'd worked my whole life for that singular goal, and I attained it. And it was worthless because I didn't like myself. I didn't like what I was surrounded by. I wanted something so different. And as kismet usually works, I met my husband right after I left the show, and he wasn't interested in the jobs that I'd had before or the trivia of me, what my favorite movie was, what my favorite color was. He wanted to know, where do you want to be in 5 years? And we had the exact same vision. We wanted to be in a small town, raising kids, living on a farm. And so that became the thing that we really built our whole life around. And you hear lots of stories of people, risking it all, but oftentimes they gloss over the hard work that goes into it. And so I wanted to honor that hard work. It took an entire village to help us get here. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that they allowed us into their world.
You obviously have such a great story to tell with your husband, which I'll ask you a few questions in a bit, but you did a whole lot of living even before you met Jeffrey. Did you go through a bit of like, how much should I get into about my past life in this book? And I'm speaking obviously about here, on.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I wrote it all out. So I wrote everything from high school to everything. And then we stood back and took a look at it and decided that the story starts the second Jeffrey and I discover Rhinebeck. And all the other stuff is trivia. Do you know what I mean? I treated the book the way we treated our relationship. I wanted a fresh start. And so I had to really do that, which is hard because it's hard to shed old skin. And so the book really picks up when we discover this community and decide to just jump into it. But yeah, sometimes I feel like I've been alive a really long time, especially when, like 20-year-old girls are coming up and they're like, my mom named me after you.
Oh dear.
Cool. I've been alive forever. I started telling my son that I was a witch because when he was in preschool, we had this like monster in the closet situation. And I told him, I was like, all right, well, I'll cast a spell real quick. And he got so fixated on my ability to do that. And I told him I was 108 years old. And so he told everybody in this community, this is my mom. She's a witch. She's really 108. So looking good for 112 now.
Do people still remember you from Total Request Live?
Yeah, that's really sweet. I'm still friends with so many of the people I worked with there. They protected me in a way that maybe I took for granted when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. I never saw any debauchery. If there was anything bad going on, I was everybody's kid sister. So I was protected. And they really championed me and gave me a lot of responsibility at a young age. And looking back on that and knowing how this industry works now, I can't believe they gave me the freedoms that they gave me. And I think that's why they'll always be so dear to me. I love them. And they run everything in television now. MTV people are absolutely everywhere. And I love seeing their names pop up in the credits. I've done so many shows where like a stage manager will come up. And I'm like, Steve, what are you doing here? So it's wonderful. That was a really beautiful way to come up in the business because you got to see it from behind the curtain. So I knew I wanted to be an actor. I knew that I'd been training my whole life to be an actor, but I didn't understand the business of acting yet. So I would see talent come onto the show with their publicists and their managers and their makeup and hair artists and, their stylists and this and that, and the entourage and the hype. And the people who were really, really, really talented were the kindest. They had nothing to prove. And they came with the smallest entourage because they knew how to just handle themselves. And the people who had more to prove were significantly higher maintenance. So to learn the business from that angle really affected the way I treated the business once I booked One Tree Hill, once I booked other jobs. Because I know what it's like on the other side. I know what it's like to be like elbowed in the face by a publicist who wants you to move so their client gets a perfect picture. It's a business.
Those revelations that you said you just experienced, those are still true today, by the way. The small entourage, the nice person. Yeah. I mean, you're right. You're totally right. Did that job feel life-changing or joining One Tree Hill?
So there was a really big stigma about overcoming the VJ thing, because it wasn't necessarily a natural transition to go from being a host to an actor. And I had to constantly remind people that I'd been on stage since I was 8. I'd done professional theater, and that's what I moved to New York for. So to get people over the stigma of me being a host, One Tree Hill in the beginning, I felt very judged. Like, oh, who does this kid think she is? And what ended up happening is that I've now become an actor for so long that I'm hosting a show on AMC with my husband, and everyone's asking me these questions like, is it weird hosting? I don't know. 20 years ago, I did it every day live. So yeah, sure. People have a short memory.
Yes, they do. Yes, they
Which
do.
is good.
When you look back on One Tree Hill, do you have a warm place in your heart? What do you think?
Yeah, there were certainly some major obstacles to overcome there. And I have chosen as an adult, in my attempt to take my power back, to really focus on the good. Sophia Bush, Joy Lenz, and I are in constant contact. Danielle Harris-Ackles introduced me to my husband, and their daughter was the flower girl in my wedding. Her husband married us. So I continue to do these Christmas movies with my One Tree Hill cast members, really as an excuse just to see each other. I joke that I want to be the Judd Apatow of teen drama and just work with my friends over and over again, because I love them and I trust them, and they create a safe space for me to go and, put down being mom and farmer for a little bit and be Hilarie Burton, the actor, again.
Mm. Do you, when you stay in contact with your One Tree Hill actors, do you guys ever wonder what it would have been like if social media was around at that time?
Thank God. Thank God it wasn't. I think the kids who I'm watching now, the Riverdale cast, there's so many of these shows and they just have it down pat. And I was not a kid who knew who I was at 20 years old when I was cast on the show. I had to grow up a lot. And I sang a lot of karaoke, which I'm glad was not recorded. I went into Wilmington and I really made friends with a lot of the kids in town, the kids in the local improv troupe and in the bands and things. And I treated One Tree Hill like college. It was so fun. Yeah. Because I could leave work and just infiltrate myself in this small town. So thank God no one put me on blast, because I was having a great time. I wasn't doing anything inappropriate or illegal or bad, but I danced hard. Nobody needs to see that.
Oh my gosh. All right. So now let's get to the really good stuff. So before you obviously married Jeffrey, were you one of the tens of millions of women who fell in love with him when he was Denny?
I had no idea who he was. No, I had no idea. Because I've been working. Yeah, I've been working nonstop since I was 20. You're working 12 to 18-hour days every single day. And so I wasn't watching television. I had no idea what was going on in the real world because we were secluded in this little tiny bubble. So when I was introduced to him, Danielle and Jensen made an offhand remark like, oh, this is our buddy. We want to set you up with him. He just did an action movie. And so I made fun of him the first night that we met. I was like, you're no Bruce Campbell, because I loved Bruce Campbell in Army of Darkness. And he was like, you're right. I'm not Bruce Campbell. And then I called a friend of mine from high school as I was flying back home. And I was like, I think I kissed a guy who's an action hero. My friend Danny was like, you kissed Denny? He flipped out. He was the one that alerted me to the Denny of it all. And then my brother, who was in a punk band and covered in tattoos, he was like, you kissed Denny? So it was more men who were telling me what a big deal it was. Both men and women love Jeffrey. That's what I've learned over the years.
Yes, they really do. I know. In fact, it's a coincidence you and I are talking because I love Jeffrey D. Morgan too.
Right. I'm so glad. Me too. Yeah, he's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. Did you ever get around to watching a little Denny time? Did you catch?
Yeah, it was terrible. I was so pregnant with our son, and Jeffrey was in Detroit shooting Red Dawn, and he got swine flu, and they had to shut down production. He was really, really ill, and there was just nothing I could do, and I was very concerned. And because I missed him, I was like, I'll watch this Grey's Anatomy thing everyone's talking about. And I'm watching the father of my unborn baby die on camera. And it was just the wrong time to watch that. I was moved. It really, yeah, he was great.
Well, you're very candid in the book about your romance and not only your wedding or lack of a wedding because of an outbreak, right? You couldn't.
Yeah, Zika was rough. I fought so hard to get pregnant, so hard. It was all I wanted. And I guess to kind of distract me and to try to create something nice in our world, we decided to start planning this beautiful island wedding, a small little elopement. And the second we put that money down, Zika hit the island and I got pregnant. So it was a double whammy. And it was very stressful. And Jeffrey was trying so hard to make it work. He's like, we'll just put you in a net. If you're just completely covered with a net, it'll be fine. But we didn't want to risk anything. We'd fought so hard for this pregnancy. And up until I was about 6 months pregnant, I still wasn't convinced that it wasn't going to go south because it had gone south so many other times. So yeah, that was a very stressful period. And I think things happen for a reason. And the wedding I ended up having wasn't necessarily the wedding I would have planned when I was 26 and I really, really wanted to get married right away. It was a thank you to everyone. Instead of a party for me, it was a party for everyone else. And that felt good. It felt good to be able to stand up with Jeffrey and say, you got us here. Thank you so much. That was the better way to do it.
So once you transitioned to the farm full time, how did it change the way you viewed Hollywood? Did you still want to be a part of it? Did you still want to act?
I had glamorized Hollywood my whole life as a kid. I would watch Funny Girl every single day. And every Bette Davis movie, every Liz Taylor movie, Vivian Leigh. I watched so many Vivian Leigh movies and I just loved the glamour and I loved what it was. And then when I got there, I didn't fit. And that was really hard to love something your whole life and then realize as an adult, like, honey, it's not for you. And that's not to say it's bad. It's just not right for me. The same way, like living other places isn't right for me. And acknowledging that was a big part of my growing up process. Because when you're young, you want to be like, LA sucks. Well, no, LA doesn't suck. It's just not your healthy space. So finding that healthy space on the farm was really important to me because as an actor, you are told everything. Especially in a toxic work environment, you're told how to wear your hair, how to dress, what to say. Don't you dare veer away from the dialogue on the page. Where to stand, you're a puppet. And that can wear on you and wear on your self-esteem and your ability to make choices as a human. In a healthy work environment, collaboration is key and input isn't treated like an imposition. And so I've been very lucky that in the jobs I've been doing recently, in the recent years, they've been very, very collaborative and fun and wonderful. And moving to the farm helped me be able to assert my choices. Because if I have to go out and build a new duck run, there's no one that's telling me what's right or wrong. The decision is ultimately on me. Or if I have to figure out, like, are we going to geld this donkey or are we just going to let him do what he wants to do? It's on me. And so as an adult woman, now when I show up on set, I'm far more comfortable stating my choices in a way that's not confrontational. It's just, this is what I think and take it or leave it. And when you're a kid, you're not really fed the confidence to do that.
All right, well, let me end you with this. How do you make dandelion wine?
I'm actually in the process of doing it right now. So on Sunday, my children and I went out into the fields and we picked buckets and buckets of dandelions. And then while they're, running around, I separate the dandelion petals from the green thing that holds them.
Yeah.
So you let the petals soak for about 3 days. And then you're going to want to add some citrus and a whole bunch of sugar. And you can buy champagne yeast off the internet. And it's like making any wine. It's just sugar and yeast, and you let it ferment and you let it sit for a couple months. And it's the one alcohol that's good for your liver. So.
Oh, does it taste good?
Yeah, it tastes like summer. It doesn't taste like wine. Like, you're not going to drink a huge glass of it. But my favorite book of all time is Ray Bradbury's Dandelion Wine. I read it when I was 19, living in Manhattan, very far away from the green of what I grew up around. And it resonated with me in a way that I was like, when I'm a grown-up, I'm going to make dandelion wine. And so it's the elixir of summer that you just have a little glass of when you're in the throes of winter and you need a break from that.
Oh, that's a perfect image to end this with. Thank you, Hilarie. Thanks so much.
Have a great day. Thank you.